He's testing.
He's just checking up on
Welcome, beloveds. Welcome wherever you are. If you're here in the body or somewhere else in the body, you're welcome here. Welcome to Satsang. Welcome to meditation. Welcome in this moment. This moment is welcoming you, all of you. And I wonder if you can hear me. If you can hear me, can you give me a thumbs up? And if not, let us know. And we have Steve here tonight who will read your comments. And if there's any questions that are coming up during the satsang, you can write them in the comments. And great. Maybe we can address them. I just had my eyes closed for a moment, and I felt an invitation to really go to the core, or at least to use the words which are never part of the core to take us to a depth that we very often overlook. I don't know if you remember that little exercise that I shared in some of the satsangs where we use the senses, for example, the senses of seeing, and we have become aware of the object that we see, and we have become aware of the seer, and we have become aware of the phenomenon of seeing that is also observed by the seer. Now, if we look at this in our day-to-day life, it's very simple to recognize that we are object-oriented through looking, through feeling, through seeing, through tasting, through smelling. There's always something outside of us where our energy goes and where our mind interprets in a certain way the experience. And then we meditate, or we explore in psychology, and we explore the personality situations of each other, and we learn to kind of heal old wounds, and we play with the content of mind in therapy. And the strange thing is, of course I did that for many, many years, even though I heard Osho say from the very beginning something that denies or contradicts pretty much everything we do or the purpose why we do it. So what are we looking for? We're looking for love, we're looking for peace, we're looking for silence, we're looking for presence, we are looking for joy. And we don't find an everlasting state of these things during a whole lifetime. Why not? Because we make the things that I just mentioned, we make them into an object that we seek. No? So we become a seeker. And the seeker believes that there is a goal and there's a path And when we arrive at the goal, we are happy ever after. Anybody happy ever after? It doesn't work. Why? Because the first misunderstanding is that we believe in a more and more subtle way in the object that we witness. But the object constantly changes. Even first the object is maybe possessions, you buy a house or you build a house and then the house is not big enough and then you look for a bigger object, so you buy or build a bigger house and so on. Or we do it with our profession, with our studies. We have a certain success and then we want more success, and we believe the more success we have, the more happy we get. And to a certain extent we get a little bit more happy when we fulfill a goal for a moment. But very soon we look for another object, for more. Anybody does that? More? More? And it doesn't matter in what more. First in the material world, and then in the spiritual world, and also in the relationship world. In all these worlds that keep changing, we are looking for something unchanging, and we cannot find it. Because it's not in the nature of objects. And we miss so often the subject, the me, the I, that we talk about all the time. Now, when we begin to explore the mind and the personality and the psychology, then on that level nothing has changed. We are still exploring ever-changing objects in order to arrive at happiness. And boy, we can get really busy with traumas. And if it's not my own trauma, it's just open the news, you will find endless trauma, endless madness, endless manipulation, endless politics, endless power trips. And nothing has changed since Stone Age. In Stone Age, people were a little bit less destructive because they could only kill one person at a time with a club. But still, same thing. Now we can decimate the population of the world in many, many different ways. But nothing has changed. Why? Because there is this, we could call it unconscious habit to staying focused and be busy with the object. So when the object becomes immaterial, like a thought or a belief system, then it gets more subtle but also more powerful. And when the object then becomes more esoteric, scientific, then we maybe move into the astrology, and the objects of astrology are our thoughts, are the meaning that our mind gives to a certain star constellation, still an object. And then, in my case, I was very, very much interested in past lives. What is past life? It's an idea, an imagination in the mind that nobody can prove, but it feels very alluring. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying then past life will be the object that we are concerned with in order to feel love and happiness. And then I was very interested in esoteric sciences, so we've been exploring intensely the chakras. So first of all, we are ever flowing energy, and because our mind cannot deal with ever flowing energy, it needs to freeze a certain energy and give it a certain meaning. Again, it's not wrong. We begin to understand our human expression more. And we discover that if the chakra is flowing, then we feel more alive. If the chakra is blocked, we become more repressed. On that level, that all feels right, but it doesn't address the reality of who we are. Is that too much? Are you following that? It doesn't address what we are actually looking for. So we spend, if you like the idea of past lives, we spend lifetimes to figure out the truth, but from the very beginning we look in the wrong direction. We look and we are not aware of the phenomenon of looking, and we are not aware that there's something inside of us that is aware of searching, that is aware of looking, that is aware of philosophizing, that is aware of interpreting, that is aware of all the wonderful things we do with this incredible mechanism called mind. And boy, can we wonderfully get lost in it. And all the time, we forget ourselves. We forget the me. We forget the I. We forget that which is needed so that the object can be experienced. So then we can say even the experience is an object. Even the most subtle spiritual experience is an object. I remember in 2005 we were at the Oneness University and we had a beautiful 3 weeks process of nothingness. We were just lying on our bed and taking walks in the mountains. And through the energy field of Oneness University in close to Chennai, there was something in the mental atmosphere that was very elevated, we could say. So independent from each other, Nura and I, we had the most incredible psychic experiences, divine experiences, I experienced myself, I think I talked about this, as all these different gods in India, and some of the gods I didn't even know. And I was being this god. And it was fascinating and really entertaining. But at that time already I had a sense, wait a minute, these are wonderful pictures of the creative imagination of the mind. Are they real? Only because we have experienced a certain vibrational field that has, in the common sense, received a name. For example, a name of the god Shiva, or of the god Ganesha, or of the goddess Parvati. It's beautiful. It's like a lot of mind, especially Hindu mind, is very occupied with these so-called objects. And we can come up with the most incredible fantasies around this. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not judging it. I'm just beginning to see that this is another misleading experience that then makes us believe that we have spiritually grown. And on that level, I have to admit total defeat. What does it mean, spiritual growth? Even the word growth means there is a better later when I'm more grown up. This is an interpretation of the mind around these stories. And all the time, or most of the time, we forget the subject. Where does all that form, the more gross form, material form, and the more subtle form, thought form, belief form, where does it originate? Or in other words, in self-inquiry, who or what is aware of these fantastic experiences? And then suddenly we are kind of helped back into the true I am, into the formless, the attributeless, the shapeless, the colorless, the soundless. We can only talk in less because no more object, no more being seduced by the brilliance of the inventive mind. And I'm not saying it's bad to be seduced, it's beautiful, Sometimes, we move in that dimension and share with each other the most incredible experiences, and we get quite happy within that sharing of a story that we were not aware of before, but still we are not returning the energy flow. We are not honestly looking and seeing that anything, even the most subtle vibrational field, is an object perceived by I am. I remember in the last year of Osho's life in the body, he was guiding us every evening into a meditation. He started with a long, beautiful talk about many different topics. Then he invited us to do 5 minutes of intense gibberish, which means speaking a language that you don't know and just throwing out any thought form, congruent or incongruent. The whole Buddha hall, 3,000 people, gibberish, and then there came a drum beat, and Osho guided us into silence, and deeper and deeper and deeper, and then another drum beat, and he invited us to lie down, to let go completely. And I remember at the time I was very interested and very keen to go into the depths of esoteric sciences, of the subtle bodies, of the energy body, the physical body, the etheric body, and so on, all these energy bodies. And I heard Buddha Osho say, in this very moment, you are all Buddhas. You are not your body, you are not your mind, You're not your thoughts. You're not even your subtle bodies. You're not your energy fields. You're not anything you can experience. You are the Buddha. And at the time, I thought I understood. But then my whole energy was still very much into exploring the chakras, which was very beautiful. And in a way, very helpful for life in this body that, of course, ends sometimes. But for the moment, to get a sense of how energy moves is scientifically very beautiful. And yet it doesn't reveal who we always have been. So we could say the return journey, the journey from the object back to the source, is what Osho tried for so many years to pump into us. It's meditation. It's stopping all becoming. It is resting as that which is aware. It is allowing our loose and natural attention to not attach to any experience. Not attached to any story. And this is not a new ideal. This is not somehow to punish the fact that we are ego-identified. It is an offering of a diamond. And every evening he offered us the diamond, and he was very right. When he called us back from the relaxation, he said, well, now you will all forget, and you will run into the canteen, and you will push and see who is first in the queue, and you will have forgotten everything. And it's true. Suddenly, we are object-oriented with the food. We are object-oriented with getting this body fed. We are object-oriented in hoping to see your girlfriend at the end of the discourse, and so on. I mean, you look into your life and you may be surprised that we spend 99.99999% in forgetting ourselves. Forgetting that which is aware. That's why we're here for. Can you relate to what I'm saying? Is that too much? Not too much. No, it's very clear in a way. It's very simple. Recently, we were, Melly and I, we do yoga sometimes in the morning, and we listen to an Osho discourse, and I realize he always talks about it. And at the time I thought I understood, but I didn't. It was still the ego, the becoming, the ambitious, the intellectual, the scientist in me, or the lover, or whatever. It was always an object. And the good news is that we don't need to change anything in the object that we perceive. This is for those of you who are listening, who are very much obsessed with improving yourself, with changing yourself, with becoming more conscious, with healing your traumas. All this is totally relevant on that level. On the level of personality level, we can polish the diamond to the max. But when we suddenly look deep beyond the reflections of the facets of the diamond. What do we see? Nothing. What did we hear? Silence. What do we sense? Love. Here it dawns to me why the Indians, the Hindus, have called this world Maya. You know, on that level, everything is an illusion. The only reality is the I am, in which every illusion appears and disappears. So here words become impossible. We're trying to label the infinite. It's impossible. And yet it's a joy to try. So before we sit a little bit more deeper in the nothingness of being, perhaps this is a good moment. If there's any comments or any questions that come, please write it in the comment section, and I will argue with you on a different level.
You mentioned trauma.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how we can look at thoughts that we have, and then that becomes an object. I'm wondering specifically about trauma, because there seems to be a lot of talk about trauma.
Yeah.
And people's childhood trauma. And I'm just wondering, because people get caught into the trauma, and they focus on the trauma, and it's an endless cycle. And I'm wondering why that is. Is trauma just a story? Or what is it about trauma that keeps people focused on that object continuously and never getting by the trauma, past the trauma?
I don't know if you heard acoustically Steve's question. His question was, about trauma. What is trauma? And in these days, a lot of people work a lot with the content of trauma, but it seems to become a vicious circle where the more we explore trauma, the more we feel traumatized. And so the question is, what is it about? Again, there are different levels of understanding, and I think we cannot take a shortcut that is guided by the mental understanding of what I'm saying. If you keep what I'm saying in the mind, and if you keep the idea that nothing needs to change and you don't need to do anything, because everything is anyway an illusion or an object orientation, then that can become a subtle escape mechanism to face whatever needs healing within you. But if you deeply sense, not through the mind, but through your deep understanding of your own being, if you deeply sense that even your own attention to a trauma clouds the brilliance of your infinite being, then you can directly wake up in that. Now, as long as you believe in a sense of self that, in this case, is traumatized, you believe in a story of the past. And the story of the past, of course, has embedded itself in the psyche, but also in the physical body. It's like a traumatized body, a body that carries old memories and hasn't, and the witness of the body has not awakened yet, then trauma feels very real. And on the psychological or emotional release level, we can work with that. So I think it's a phenomenon of our time where many traumas come to the surface, and how I understand it, and that may be totally wrong, I don't know, how I understand it is one aspect of these things coming to the surface is to complete something within the body-mind, within the form, so that the jump from mind to no mind is easier. You may notice we can be more aware or easier aware if we are happy, if we are in a good spirit. If we are attached and identified with deep misery, then somebody says this is all your mind and you are fantasizing. You will not like that. You will not accept that because it feels so real. So there, the skill of communication needs to be added to your infinite love that in itself would love to support whoever you're dealing with. I can give you an example from recently. Recently I had a meeting with a friend who was suddenly diagnosed by an intense big cancer. And he discovered himself frantically looking for the right remedy, which is fair enough. Everybody would do that. But the identification with the helplessness and the victimization and the impossibility to accept the body in its situation was separating him from the innate truth of his being. But he's an old meditator, so he had these experiences already. So with this person I could very easily but very gently acknowledge what the body is going through, feeling with him empathetically, because if I would be in that situation, I would probably, part of my personality would also freak out. And then more and more within that intense helplessness and that unknown threat, he could simply wake up and see. And suddenly the whole horror story of cancer and the clear death sentence, how it looked like, eased out into a beautiful, calm moment. So what were if I look at it scientifically, what were the elements that revealed the calm and the peace that everybody is at the core? Not as form, but as something before form, which is like a vast, unnameable. So on that level, I feel many, many more people can be pointed to their being and realize in that rediscovery that the trauma on that level is no more real. No? It doesn't happen with so many people. No? Like, forgive me, the trauma healers, you're doing a great job. And forgive me if this is provocative to you right now. For that, the Buddha's words come to me. It's like, yes, go and investigate into your trauma, knowing that it's your personality structure that is observed by you. But give that you, that infinite you, the possibility to see that what you call trauma is thoughts of the past that have embodied itself and started to being experienced in the psyche and the body. So the body is the object, the psyche is the object, the experience is the object, and who are you? And that could be a more modern, I shouldn't say trauma healing, because there's no more healing. It is just an awakening to that which was always here. That which is aware even of your deepest trauma is not the trauma. It's the awareness. Can you follow that? So in this moment, the trauma is finished. But with it, you and the identification or the sense of self that we have created through the trauma is also finished. So there's nobody separate that can struggle with the object, because we have always been the subject. Take a deep breath. It gets really, it gets quite deep. No? And please don't take this as a strategy of the mind. It will not work. No? And how do you know that it works? Is when the whole idea of trauma just is leaving you. And you realize, wait a minute, there was something here, and I worked so much on it. And it was just a white cloud in the empty sky. And the amazing thing is that just one glimpse, one tiny recognition, one willingness to look through the gap between right and wrong, good and bad, high and low, truth and lie, and all these dualities, into that which is aware of everything. And of course that is not a thing, but it is you. Ramana called it the self, the true self. And then it gets more absurd, because the true self is not personal anymore. Your self and my self are one self. That's where oneness is.
And the true self can never be traumatized.
The true self has never been traumatized. It cannot be traumatized because it's not the thing. It's not an identity. It's not a sense of self. It is beyond. No? That's why the concept of God came into being. But what the religions unfortunately also misunderstood is that then they make God an object. No? Suddenly, Jesus says, "I am and me and my Father are one." But he still calls it the Father, just for our mind to understand. What does it mean? There is no outer form. But since our human mind is so attached to object, to form, to something outside of us, we need to invent more and more. And if you look at all the aspects of invention of the mind, the shamanic approach.
Even that song about the anointing and the spirit coming into the body, and all that.
It's every expression. How to say this? It's not wrong. It's a beautiful play. You go to the theater and you know that there are actors. They are acting something else. Or you watch a Netflix movie and you get touched to tears, and it's just light and shadow and an empty wall. So there's nothing wrong in it. And the danger when you have a glimpse is then to condemn the people that didn't have the glimpse. But
how do you go there?
Yeah, exactly. No? So it's a very big mystery. And at the same time, it is so simple, and it boils down to shifting our whole attention to now and catching the tendency of the mind that wants to go to the object, and then catching the tendency of the mind to want to go to the future or to the past. Because only in these dynamics we exist as a separate entity. As the true self, we don't exist. Wow.
That's great. We've got some
Any
messages from Cynthia Kernwell. Sunita Kernwell.
Kenita Chanel. Kenita, hi.
Thank you for the beautiful words about trauma. It really sunk in.
Oh, good. Good.
And Hilda Plantenkamp.
Yeah.
I am in God, and God is in us. God is everywhere.
Yes, there is only God. The Sufis said it in a different way. La ilaha illallah. There is nothing else but God. But the mind still needs to give it a name, and then God, in the Muslim religion, is personified as somebody outside. God is everywhere, but it's blasphemy if you say it's also in me. Isn't it incredible? The Sufis, they at least also say, well, God is also in me. God is everywhere. La ilaha illallah. It becomes dangerous if it's a new belief, because then my God is better than your God.
So, could you say that trauma is a story? Trauma, is it a story?
Is trauma a story? Yes. It's a story that has not completed itself in its life's expression. No? For example, trauma, if you've been sexually abused, for example, or if you have been beaten almost to death as a child, then there is a mechanism in the body-mind that copes through disconnecting. No? It's called shock. No? Otherwise, the body-mind would have died. So, in that disconnection, for some people there is shock, and behind the shock is a huge volcano of emotional expression that in emotional work, in paths of love work, in trauma work, and in Fischer-Hoffmann work, for example, the expression is supported, or in Osho's dynamic meditation, the expression of incomplete energies is supported to complete it on an energy level. But all the time it is actually trying, or with more or less success, to ease the separation, to ease the resistance, to somehow unblock the dam of the river that has been, to unblock the dam so that the river can flow. So on that level it's very helpful. And yet the river has always been a river, whether it was held or flowing. And that which is aware of it was always there. So yes, it's a story of the past, and some people are conscious of what happened, and many people are not conscious of what happened. And if we look at in a deeper way, in the moment there are so many collective traumas that, funny enough, reappear, like all the sexual abuse of the Catholic Church. It's an incredible thing that it's like a wave going through the whole world, where priests and even the Pope, the German Pope, was accused of knowing child abuse in the church and not reporting it. And is it a trauma? It's a collective unconsciousness that seemed to need to surface for whatever reason. Unfortunately, many people use it to re-traumatize themselves. But as awareness awakens, perhaps in the seeing there is less charge, and in the seeing the seer becomes more visible. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like, yeah. And when you touch that place, of course you cannot change the past. Of course you cannot rip out a thought form, but you can recognize you're not the thought. Finished. You can recognize you're not the story. But then your whole identity goes through a huge shift without any need to change anything. So it's a fascinating situation. And on that level, I think the whole COVID pandemic and the whole fear pandemic and the whole mental health pandemic that goes with it, and the whole, the whole world is kind of traumatized by something that started with a virus that was always here, that was manipulated with, obviously, and that then became a threatening thought form on which, people reacted in a very strange way. In the attempt to find a remedy from a thought form of war, we have to fight that virus, which is the old mindset that we carry as humanity for so long. And the people that who were not interested in fighting it, but in supporting the health on the other side, they basically got overrun by mandates, which is crazy. But it only reflects a certain level of consciousness. It couldn't be otherwise. So for the meditator, it's a wonderful challenge to remember the truth of our being and not be manipulated by unconsciousness. And I realize when I say this, there's still a division. It's like there is this and this. And who is aware of it? I am. Who am I? Very good. Any other comments before we sit?
Yes, there is. Christina Hildebrand.
Christina, yes.
Does the trauma of seeing your mother being beaten, being free, in the big picture, does the trauma of seeing your mother being beaten,
the trauma of your mother being beaten,
being F-R-I-G, I don't know what she means.
frightened.
Does the trauma of seeing your mother being beaten, oh here it goes, okay. Does the trauma of seeing your mother being beaten, being frightened, stat in the same way?
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure.
The question is the trauma of your mother, of seeing your mother being beaten, connected, if I understand you right, connected in the same way? Yes. Well, seeing your mother being beaten is, since as the child of your mother, it is almost like you being beaten, and there's a helplessness and a realization that you cannot do anything, and that has lodged itself into a fear response, into a stress response, and the body learns the stress response, and out of that it becomes a trauma. And yet the more, I would say, you meditate and you allow your attention to rest on that which is aware of this story also, there may come a moment, and I pray for you, for all of us, that this moment comes very soon, is that you see, it's like going to the movie. You see a traumatic movie. You see where the father beats the mother and the child screams, and so on that level it feels very real. But you know that you are the watcher. You see that movie, and when your attention more and more moves towards the seer, the story doesn't change. The fact of the story, that's what is. But the interpretation that this story has something to do with you now, and that's why you need to suffer now, releases. It releases just like you realize you have watched a horrible movie and the movie is finished, and you carry it a little bit, maybe until you sleep, and then you have nightmares, and the next morning it's gone. Because that which is aware is undisturbed. And if you look from that perspective into your own story, if you have a trauma of your mother being beaten, and you turn your attention away from that thought, not as a strategy, but as a recognition. Wait a minute, my attention goes out. What if it goes in and seeks that which is already aware, which sees? Awareness has never lost you, otherwise you couldn't speak it out. You see it, and you rest as that which sees. And you may be surprised, in the middle of the most chaotic mind storm, there is calm. There is peace. And the strange thing is that then what happens is the peace that you are is the love that you are. And that spacious love that you are holds all the emotional expressions and let them be. And the story is finished. There's no more resistance. There's no more trying to manipulate it. There's no more trying to change it. But the love that is freed is available to share with, with your mother and with your abusive father and with anyone else that needs to be shared with. Maybe not verbally, maybe through your presence, maybe through your compassionate heart, maybe through your kindness, maybe through however your true no-self discovers its own expression through the body-mind. Was that too complicated? No? Mm-hmm. So that is the, if you like, the whole movement of consciousness, how I see it. Consciousness itself, that which is aware of all experience, in itself seems to evolve. Nowadays so many more people are present, or are meditators, are also seekers. So many different levels of awakening. And who knows? It starts with each one of us. So, just for those of you who love to be therapists for their friends, don't quote me, because otherwise you use what I'm saying as a strategy. I heard Rahasya say, "This is just your mind. Come on, drop your trauma and be happy." Doesn't work like this. The unfolding, the unveiling of your true nature is always fresh. It's always a surprise. It's always grace. It's always in spite of you. I think I want to dedicate the light of the candle tonight into the deepest truth of our being, which is, in a way, that's a beautiful symbol of light, because light is not really an object. We can make it an object, but we are light. So let's sit with that a while. And if you allow me, I may sometimes say a word or two. Now, there were many words that came out of my mouth, and let them be now like a whole range of clouds that are slowly dissipating in the sky. In German, there's a cloud formation called Schäfchenwolken, sheep clouds, because there are many, many little clouds. Now as you close your eyes and you just be here, allow all these thought clouds to gently settle. Allow yourself to be completely here, but totally effortless, because the moment we make an effort, we are caught in a certain becoming, whereas right now we are already. Rest here. If you like, you can feel how everything that up to now has defined you in a physical form, in an esoteric form, in an energy form, in a thought form, is gently falling off. You can have it all back after the meditation, but just now feel like many coats are gently slipping off your being, revealing nothing, revealing space. And perhaps already now you notice a certain peace emerging that was always here, but it was covered by these coats. And as our attention moves to that peaceful space, you may sense a certain expansion, a certain lightness. And perhaps you also discover that behind all sounds, here in Australia, in the moment, there are these night creatures, frogs and other creatures that are singing, pointing us to the silence behind their song. And feel how each breath, the in-breath and the out-breath, are effortless. They are more happening than being done. And you may notice the habit that all our minds have, that thoughts float by, or they enter the space and claim your attention. And just a short recognition. Sometimes it may even be helpful to say to yourself inside, thought is here. And you can be kind to that thought, whatever it is. And then turn your attention back to the space that is aware of thought. Allowing each out-breath to take you deeper into infinity. And we're going to sit here for a while, maybe for 15 minutes. Just enjoying this moment. This space. This consciousness. feel this peace. It is everywhere. Feel it in the cells of your body. Feel how in being held in peace, every cell can relax. Having just a glimpse of this is such a blessing. Sharing this field of presence brings us to gratitude. Feel the subtle joy that doesn't need a reason. It is just this expansion of space, of nothingness, of presence. And reconnecting for even a few seconds every day with our true nature. Has an invisible effect of everything, on everything that is alive. And in a moment we can take a deeper breath and just beginning to feel this body again as it is kind of permeated by space. A deep breath. Feeling into every cell of the body that is permeated by this. We call this also life. Feel your aliveness. And with another deep breath, you may want to gently stretch your body, allowing your body to open, to stretch into all the cells until you find a good moment to open your eyes to a completely new moment here. And for a moment before your eyes move outward to objects, let them be like relaxed windows. Yes, and now we can slowly come back into the world and enjoy the wonderful play that is always unpredictable and unknown, and yet when we are present to it, there can be joy and gratitude and peace and love and kindness. Is there any more comments from friends? Thomas?
Be strong. Be as you are. Thank you, Rahasya.
Be as you are. Thank you, Thomas. Yes, be as you are. What else can we be? We can only be as we are. Very good. I think with this, we complete the evening. We don't complete the infinite being that we are, but we allow it to kind of penetrate into every aspect of our life. No? So thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for daring to dive so deep. No? I was surprised myself. Where did it come from? Deep gratitude to all of you. And we'll see you next Friday. We will have another satsang. And if you want to kind of address a certain topic, please feel free to write, in Messenger or in email. And if you like to address any question, I don't know. Usually I don't have a direct answer, but there's something that through our interaction gets inspired, and it's like existence can talk. So much love to you, and thank you for being here. And we see you next time. And to the friends who are here in Satsang in Australia, I want to remind you that you can share the depths of your inner being with your most beloved partner and discover the mystery of Tantra in our couples retreat from the 25th of March to the 31st of March. We still have a few places left. It's slowly filling, but would be wonderful if you can jump in, and we spend a whole week in the grace of presence and love, and include our physical and sexual and emotional and sensitive energy to remember the truth. So thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the evening. Namaste.